The TROPHY-U-01 study is a phase 2 clinical trial in patients with advanced urothelial carcinoma. The background is twofold. One is that there's an unmet need for patients with metastatic urothelial carcinoma following progression on immune checkpoint inhibitors as well as platinum-based chemotherapy. We know that there are certain antibody-drug conjugates that appear to work in a number of different diseases. TROP2 is a reasonable target. It is expressed, or actually overexpressed, in a number of different epithelial types of cancers, including urothelial carcinoma. In the past, there was a phase 1/2 basket study that included patients with urothelial carcinoma, and we presented preliminary data at the beginning of the year on 45 patients with advanced urothelial carcinoma who have a historic response rate of somewhere between 10 to 14%, and that study had an overall response rate of 31%. So we wanted to have a dedicated study for urothelial carcinoma, and we launched the TROPHY-U-01 study. So this is a prospective open-label study in 2 cohorts. The main cohort is 100 evaluable patients, or designed for 100 evaluable patients with advanced urothelial carcinoma and progression of disease despite both platinum-based chemotherapy and immune checkpoint inhibitors. There was a second exploratory cohort of patients designed to be 40 patients with that are cisplatin unfit that have progressed despite immune checkpoint inhibitors. The larger cohort is designed as a Simon 2 stage with an interim look after 35 patients, and that's what we presented today, where it was prospectively determined in a futility analysis if 4 or fewer patients had a response in the first 35, then the trial would be halted. So we found results very similar to what was presented early this year, that in a fairly heavily pretreated patient population, this was a median of 4th-line therapy beyond platinum and immunotherapy, that the response rate overall was 29%, so very similar to the previous 31%. That included patients, the majority, about 2/3, with visceral metastases and a quarter with liver metastases, so very similar patient population, very similar results in terms of objective response rate. This is data that's very new, so we don't have progression-free or overall survival to match, unlike with the prior data set. Likewise, in terms of efficacy was similar, the toxicity profile was similar to the prior urothelial patients, as well as the overall data set, which is the biggest data set happens to be in triple-negative breast cancer, where myelosuppression is the most common severe toxicity if it occurs. We had the majority with neutropenia and 11% with febrile neutropenia. Diarrhea is the second most common adverse event, which was also the majority, but grade 3 or grade 4 was rare. And the good thing about the grade 1 and grade 2 is it's typically temporary, meaning a few days per cycle. So my viewpoint is that the impact on the quality of life is not really for the duration of their time on therapy, it's intermittently with treatment. Based on the primary endpoint of what we presented, the futility stopping rule was not met, so we are continuing enrollment. This trial for the main cohort is about 3/4 enrolled, and the second cohort is about 50% enrolled, so we will continue that, and hopefully we'll have an analysis next year of the primary endpoint, which is objective response rate. We will also hopefully have more mature data to be able to at least have a preliminary look at progression-free and overall survival. And the hope is that, number one, the drug hopefully will be approved for breast cancer in the near future, which hopefully will bring interest as well as finance to support larger trials in urothelial carcinoma. And there's a randomized phase 3 that's planned, and if all goes well, that will start next year.